Hey everybody, welcome to That's OD. It's your boy Ohm. I'm here with my dude Dave, who's in Philadelphia, back at home in his old stomping grounds. This is where we talk all things LA basketball, and we always start with as the Lakers turn, Dave. Dave, last time we talked last week, we said that it looks like the Lakers might be turning the corner here. They're playing their best basketball of the season, and then they go into Milwaukee. And I mean, it had to be their best game in a long time. They looked great. Anthony Davis is back to bubble AD. I mean, he is dominating games. I felt like this is what he had to do. He had to come back with a vengeance this year for the Lakers to be good. I'm not quite sure if it's sustainable, Dave, but what are you seeing in the Lakers? Obviously, the last couple of games, they fallen a little bit. AD got sick. LeBron was out. And obviously, there's really no margin for error with this team. But what are you seeing with the Lakers and how AD and LeBron are feeling?
Well, you have to give all the flowers you possibly can to AD. I'm not just saying give him flowers because I'm in my mom's office and there's some sunflowers here in the Philly
Yes.
suburbs. We can give
Yes.
AD those flowers, but the guy criticism, heard all the talk, heard all the derisive nicknames, and he recognized that a lot of what happened to him since the bubble was injuries that were out of his control. And he spent time getting his body right, getting his mind right. And even this year, the 10 or so games to begin the year when he was dealing with the lower back injury, he was still a effective player. He just catapulted back into the conversation of a legitimate top 10 player, if not top five in the game. The Milwaukee game was brilliant because you saw it effective on both ends, blocking him, running the floor, using his multifaceted game to start to make some shots from the outside. And when they start guarding him on the outside, put the ball on the floor and look for contact. And he's been making, over this incredible stretch he's been on, making 88% of his free throws, which to me absolutely shows a concentration, a focus, just a zeroing in on the responsibility that he has for this team. If the Milwaukee game wasn't enough, then you go to DC, you drop a double nickel in the nation's capital, and the crowd there is chanting MVP for Anthony Davis. While we say that, though, in the same conversation, we had to mention that he has missed, for all intents and purposes, 2 full games on this road trip. He only was able to play 8 minutes in Cleveland after coming down with flu-like symptoms. He had to get fluids administered in the arena. He got medication. And then he missed the following night in Toronto. But the good news, the Lakers have been probable for the Philadelphia game. So we should see this matchup of AD at the 5 versus the type of 5 that he did not like to go up against earlier in his career, a true bruising center in Joel Embiid. And we'll see that if he can dip back into that momentum. Like, this is actually another test, another important moment for this Lakers team because, you should probably have the Detroit game at the end of the trip penciled in as a W. So you're talking about worst case scenario 3-3. But it would feel really good to go back to LA 4-2 on this pretty tough road trip and say that not only were we 4-2 in this trip, we withstood some turmoil or some drama, or whatever you want to call it, dealing with some injuries, dealing with some sickness to our players in the middle of the trip, but got back to where we needed to be for that flight back.
Yeah, I don't want to hear anybody get on AD about getting sick because, I think he had like a 105-degree fever or something like that. And listen, there's a lot of players right now around the league getting sick. I will say this: watching AD against my hometown Bullets, and when that one where he missed the shot, grabbed his own rebound, dunks, shakes the rim, lets out a little scream. I'm like, okay, this is the AD I want to see. This is the AD I want to see who's a monster inside. It is one thing, though, to be that monster against Daniel Gafford and the Wizards, okay? It's another thing to do it against Joel Embiid. Sixers just getting James Harden back. He's starting to kind of get back into the groove of things. this is a good game for the Lakers. Like if the Lakers could somehow go into Philadelphia, slow down Embiid, win with Harden back, that would be a huge win for them. Yes, you're right. There were a lot of Laker fans in DC. There are always a lot of Laker fans everywhere, but in DC especially, I grew up there. There were Laker fans there. All the like people just grew up loving Magic, Worthy, Byron Scott, Kareem, that whole era. I got to ask you, Dave. I saw Woj the other day talk about how the way the Lakers are playing, it's bought them a little more time. That they don't feel like they have to make a trade now, like right away. They can afford to wait a little bit instead of having to feel panicked to have to make a move. Had they, if they were like 0-4 on this road trip, and that right now GMs are just kind of calling around, asking other guys what they need. Doesn't sound like there's anything imminent. Is there anything you're hearing, and what did you think about what Woj said?
Yeah, I think the most important part of Woj's report on NBA Today was when he said that if the Lakers were to deal both of their future draft picks that they have available to trade now, 27 and 29, it would have to be for a legitimate star. And that tracks certainly from what we've been hearing and what I've reported, and others like Zach Lowe have reported for ESPN. I think the timing thing again is in line with what we talked about on this show, that you're not going to be talking about anything until December 15th. Because that's when contracts that were signed this summer can be traded. And if the Lakers do a smaller deal that does not involve Russell Westbrook, it's going to have to involve Patrick Beverley because of the salary number that he has, and you can't trade Beverley until the summertime, and so until December 15th. So you start talking about deals that can be put into place, and the question is, would this team not only like trade for a smaller type of deal, but would it involve a contract that has money beyond this season? Because there are names out there that you would say that sounds really good, like Bogdanovich from the Detroit Pistons.
Yeah,
man, like if you're going to play AD at the 5 moving forward, the Miles Turner deal doesn't make as much sense, right? Because you're moving AD to the 4, and if he's being so effective, looking like an MVP at the 5, why do you need to do that?
Well, can I ask you, Dave? Can I ask you this? So is AD totally fine with playing 5 now? Is he past that whole thing where like he wants a 5 next to him so he can play the 4, or are we good? He wants to move forward at 5 because he sees he's dominating at the 5.
I'll just say this: of course, habits are hard to break, and for years he has made it quite clear that he does not prefer to play the 5. But you can't argue with these results, and ultimately, and I do believe this, that he cares about winning above all else. And if they're winning with this style of play, I don't think there's an argument against it. And so then you say, what does this team absolutely need? Well, it needs shooting, of course, but it needs kind of a big, switchable, sturdy 4 that can pick up guys on the wing, but still get some rebounding help. And that's when you talk about a guy like Bogdanovich, a guy like Kyle Kuzma.
Yeah,
a guy
I was
like
about to say, it sounds like
PJ
you
Washington.
just described Kuzma
like
a little
Kuz,
bit,
right?
Yeah,
Bring Kuz back. I mean, he could be just like the player that he was before, but just have brand new teeth. Brand new grill for my guy Kuz.
Yeah, different hair too.
Yeah, different hair too. That's true, but that's going to continue to change.
Yes,
but I mean, so then the question is, if any of these guys have money owed to them beyond the the end of this season, because if you're doing that type of deal, it means you're holding on to Russ, and you're holding on to Russ. Part of the thinking is that his money's going to come off the books, which will open up free agency money to be able to go after guys this summer. But if in the same fell swoop that you're having that money come off of Russ's books, but then you also are adding some player that has more money guaranteed to him moving forward, you're kind of, it's all coming out in the wash where you're not going to be a player in free agency. And so I think that would be the 2-part benefit of, okay, yes, we will these first round draft picks to help this team with a role player this year. Uh, it won't necessarily be this big, completely landscape changing trade involving 2 picks and a star, because that may just be hard to come by. But we can still help this team now, save a draft pick for the future, and become a player in free agency this summer. I think that's the best case scenario all around.
I think they gotta be somewhere in between all of that. Like, I'm not saying get rid of the whole future, but you can't also just think about like next summer and be like, okay, we're going to add a big time free agent for LeBron AD when, nothing is given to you. The future's not given to you when you're talking about LeBron James. I'm not saying LeBron's going to bolt. I'm just saying, like, we don't know what's going to happen with LeBron's health. He's up there in age. So, and you got to take advantage of what you have now, and hope that, you can try and contend this season, and that this season is not only about LeBron passing Kareem, you know what I mean? So I do think like Bogdanovich would be a great fit anywhere. There's a lot of teams that love Bogdanovich. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do. Let's talk about the Clippers, Dave. Kawhi and PG came back on Monday, and Kawhi hit a game-winning shot in Charlotte. Before you say, why did they need a game-winning shot from Kawhi against the Charlotte Hornets without LaMelo Ball and Gordon Hayward? I would say, look, this team has looked good at times with Paul and Kawhi back on. They look like incredible. And then there are moments when they look really bad. And I would say that Charlotte game, they needed that. They needed to go through a crunch time situation with Paul and Kawhi on the floor to get them that kind of like, not, I wouldn't say experience, because obviously they have a lot of experience, but to get them in that game situation as Kawhi is building his way back. And Kawhi has been up and down. He's not shooting well from three at all. I want to say it's like maybe 17% or something like that. The little soft touch that he has on his three, that nice arc, is not there right now. Things seem a little rushed. I think he's more in a playmaking mode where he's trying to feel things out, take what the defense gives him, and find teammates. He's still kind of able to work his way to his mid-range spots, but it's a little more of a grind to do it. He did it perfectly against Charlotte. PG started off, it looked like he never even missed any time. He looked great at the beginning. And then toward the end, like, Paul actually had a chance to probably, on the last play when the game was tied, he grabbed a rebound almost out near half court, and he was starting to run toward the basket. He only had one guy in front of him, and he could have taken it to the rim, pulled it back out with about 15 seconds ago. He saw Kawhi in the right corner with Terry Rozier on him. He swung the ball to John Wall. John Wall swung the ball to Kawhi. At that point, Charlotte switched McDaniels onto Kawhi, but Kawhi still was able to get his shot off in the mid-range, win the game. So that's a point where I think in that play right before that, there was a battle for an offensive rebound. Paul George tipped the offensive rebound to Kawhi underneath the basket for Kawhi to score to tie the game. So these are things where those two are starting to kind of get that chemistry back together again. Ty's playing them together too in their minutes. But against Orlando, Dave, they started off great. They were up by like 18 in the first quarter, and then it all fell apart after that. They kind of tend to like lose interest at times, like most veteran teams sometimes tend to do. But like they just like by the time they try to get their act together in the fourth quarter, Orlando was the one that was executing, and the Clippers looked like the Magic. They were just having mistake after mistake after mistake. Like Nick Batum had a 5-second inbounds turnover. You never see that. They tried to throw a 3/4 court pass inbounds with 5 seconds left in overtime to Paul George. The ball sailed right toward the Clippers bench. They were just miscues that you see from a team that frankly looks like a team that's discombobulated at times and doesn't have their stars and is still kind of learning how to play together.
Let me ask you this about the game winner that Kawhi had. What's your feeling watching a game winner when it goes through the net and there's still like 4 or 5 seconds left on the clock?
I have this struggle personally a lot of times when I watch the Michigan State Spartans basketball team, because Tom Izzo, and then of course the college is different than the pros. I get it, okay? But Tom Izzo likes to take timeouts. If he has the ball with the final 25 seconds, he'll take a timeout with 12 seconds or 15 seconds to go so that he can run one play and that they can take all the clock down. I hate when we do that. And I say we because I am Spartan. I hate when we do that because it leaves no margin for error. And when they were on the battleship and playing against Gonzaga and they did this, what happens? The guy comes off the screen, he trips and falls. Now all of a sudden the play is disrupted. They have to take a rush shot at the end. With the pros, it's different. Like even the pros, they give me anxiety, okay? Like when guys, let's say they have 8 seconds to go or 5 seconds to go, and they still stand back there like they have all the time in the world before they make their move. Like they don't make, like let's say they have 12 seconds left, and I'm like, all right, let's get going. Let's get going. It's down to 7 seconds. It's down to 6. And they don't make their move to like 3. I'm just like, man, how do you even know you're going to get a good shot off, you know? In this case,
but you know, if you know, you know.
Well, I only felt good like that with Michael. That was it. Michael, maybe Kobe. Okay. Everybody else, I'm kind of like, Kawhi's actually pretty good about that, though. Kawhi, because he takes his time, he likes to get to his spot, things like that. You know, when he gets his mid-range spot, it's pretty good. Paul, pretty good as well. So, yeah, I mean, I do get a little anxiety, though.
I watched the Instagram carousel of all of his game winners in his career. And obviously the one, Kawhi. And it was like 6 or 7 of them, right? And the one that always comes to mind for everyone actually was covering that game, Game 7, Eastern Conference semifinals between the Raptors and Sixers. He runs to the corner, lets it fly, bounces on the rim 4 times, goes in, zeros on the clock. One of the most dramatic shots in NBA playoff history. That's fantastic. All the other ones, there's like 4 or 5 seconds left on the clock. And like the best analogy I can make, and I know I've told you about, I've gotten back over the pandemic and stuff. I got back into card collecting, sports cards.
Yeah.
And I've sent some out to get graded, right? So a card can look perfect.
By the way, Dave, look what I just found the other day. Do you remember
what we got?
This is an upper deck locker that you used to put cards in. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
You remember this?
Fantastic.
I found this the other day. I don't know what the cards are in here yet. I still got to look. I'm probably sure there's no Jordan rookie in here. But
right, incredible.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Well, that's a good aside, and it's along these lines. So you can send in a card to get graded. If it gets a 9, it basically looks perfect.
Yes.
But it gets a 9, right? There could be one very slight flaw that wouldn't even be apparent to the naked eye. If it gets a 10, it looks the same way, but it's worth 3 or 4 times more. That's what I think it is. A game winner that is 4 seconds left, still a game winner. It's like a 9. The game winner that's a buzzer beater, that's worth 4 or 5 times more.
Yeah,
that's
I'm trying to think
10.
like, is there's a situation where Michael hit a game winner and left time on the clock for the other team, but it still ended up, still, I guess, when you look at Michael's all-time highlights, so many of those game winners were right at the buzzer.
Right at the buzzer. The shot against Craig Eglo.
Yeah, the one in the finals against the Lakers. I'm not even talking about the most famous one, which is against the Utah Jazz, but the one in like the finals against the Lakers, I think it was game 1. I think he hit that one at the buzzer. I mean, it's
the one on the wing against the Jazz, not the most famous shot. That was at the buzzer when he did this. Obviously, the one where he keeps his hand hanging over Byron Russell, that was not at the buzzer, and that's all the context of that shot. Okay, that one I'll still give a PSA 10. But I like it when the zeros go down. That's my little rant.
Yeah, you like living life on the edge, Dave. You like living life on the edge.
There you go.
So with the Clippers, look, no Kawhi against Miami on Thursday night. That's nothing unusual. He's sitting out back-to-backs. Paul George is slated to play. No Terrence Mann. He's hurt. Luke Kennard will play. Marcus Morris will play. John Wall will play. So we'll see how the Clippers do. It's one of these things where you're just going to be following them all season long to see if they can develop that chemistry. I will say this, Kawhi Leonard and Paul George both told the LA Times, Andrew Greifer, a buddy, basically said that we want to play. The medical staff is telling us that we got to be careful, but we want to play. We want to lead. We'll see where that goes. But their minutes, good indication, their minutes are up in the 30s, which I thought I didn't think we'd see this fast. So let's go to our second segment, Dave. LA Confidential, where we unload things in our notebook. I'll start with, I sat down with John Wall recently. He's going to return to Washington, D.C. on Saturday, and it'll be an emotional return. I like to call it Return the Sequel, because he did play in D.C. The season after he got traded for Russell Westbrook when he was with the Houston Rockets in February of 2021. The unfortunate thing was that back then with COVID, there were no fans in the building. So the stands were covered by like a blue tarp. Even like the front row seats, the courtside seats weren't even there, which was a bummer for John because John used to own 2 seats that were right across from the Wizards bench. And that's where his mom used to sit. And his mom died about over a year prior to him returning to DC. So he was kind of hoping to see that. He didn't even really get to see his friends and family and really kind of thank all the people in DC. And yes, the Wizards had a tribute video for him, but there were no fans in the building to appreciate it and to thank him. And so this time around, he will get a chance to thank the fans. The Wizards are going to have another tribute video for him, and that it'll feel more like the way it was intended. And, Wall was looking forward to this. I'll say this, I should text Ty Lue and tell him, you better play John Wall the full allotment of minutes that you have for him. Because when they went back to Houston early in the year, John Wall was determined to show the Rockets that he still had plenty left in the tank. And Ty ended up only playing him for 15 minutes. I think John had like a lot of turnovers in that game. He did have some moments. He had a behind the back dribble and then dished off to like Moses Brown for a monster dunk. But I don't think he played much in that fourth quarter. And John was so frustrated, so upset, he bolted out of the locker room shortly after that game. He would later admit, I need to take a bigger picture view of everything, that the Clippers want me to be ready for the playoffs. But he's frustrated with playing in these 6-minute stints. And basically his minutes now are going up and he's feeling better about that. I talked to him about him and Bradley Beal and if he had any regrets about how things went. And he said, no, Brad's still like a brother to me. A lot of people in the media tried to divide us and say that we could not coexist. He said, yes, if you have 2 guys who think they're both should be the man and they're both stars, there are going to be times where we don't see eye to eye. There are going to be some disagreements, but we've always had each other's back. And I said, well, was there anything you would have done differently? He said, no, except for the fact that seeing that Brad has expanded his game every year and the playmaker he is now, he said, I think when I was younger, maybe I should have let him handle the ball more so that he could develop his pick and roll game and all this stuff that he is now, so that they could have had that a little bit earlier. And he did say, seeing that Brad averaged 30 after John was injured, he said, I wish I was there for Brad and I could have been his roll dog when he was one of the best scorers in the NBA. So I think that's kind of interesting. It'll be really cool to see him and DC kind of get a chance to thank him for, one of the greatest careers in a Wizards uniform.
LA Confidential, I'll take you to Fiserv Forum in Milwaukee at the start of this 6-game road trip, and post-game, we're waiting for Anthony Davis, and Tanisha Cooper works for the Lakers PR department, does a great job. She came into the room and said, oh, AD is going to be just a second. He's catching up with some folks in the hallway. Well, we decide to pop our heads out to see who the folks are. And lo and behold, it's Anthony Davis, Aaron Rodgers of the Green Bay Packers, and Randall Cobb. And they are going back and forth. And AD is a very personable guy to cover, probably maybe more so than any other superstar had been around. He invites conversation about things not so serious about what's going on in the NBA, but we all talk about football as a reporter crew with him, because we know how much he cares about the Packers. And so as soon as he saw myself and Dan Wicke of the LA Times and Kyle Goon of the Orange County Register pop our heads out of the media room to where he was standing in the hallway, he points dead at us and tells Aaron Rodgers, those are the guys that are giving you guys blank all season long, which was pretty funny. And it led to a subsequent conversation with Anthony Davis and LeBron in the post-game locker room after the podium portion of the news conference was finished. And the question was, posited by LeBron James, which sports could you live without as a fan? And both of them had the NFL in, no way they can live without it. I like the NFL a lot. I'd be okay.
Dave.
Give me the NBA. Give me the NBA. Give me Cuse basketball. I can live with it.
Dave, I could not live in a world without the NFL. I'm sorry. I cannot live in a world without fantasy football. No.
So if you only get 2, it's easy for you, NBA and NFL?
Well, it's not that simple because I need Michigan State basketball.
See, there you go.
That's a hard year. God, you're asking me. It's like that movie, Good Son. You ever seen that movie? The
Macaulay
one with
Culkin?
Macaulay Culkin. Yes,
Oh my
evil
gosh.
Macaulay Culkin. And at the end,
How are we in December talking about any Macaulay Culkin movie other than Home Alone?
at the
That's
end,
the upset of the
spoiler
century.
at the end, spoiler alert, the mom has on one hand, she's holding on to Macaulay Culkin, and the other hand, who's this, evil cousin of her son. And on the other hand, she's holding her own son's hands, and she has to make a decision which one she's going to let slip off the cliff. Okay. I used to always do this in college. I used to ask him if there were two things you love the most. Okay. Which one would I would be like, your girlfriend's on one hand and your mom's on the other. Which one are you letting go of? It's like an impossible situation to think about. So you're
See, there
asking
you
me an
go.
impossible situation. Am I letting go of the NFL or Michigan State? In that case, I guess I would have to let go of the NFL. God, I can't believe I just said that. All right, so we're on to Hollywood star and LA car chase, Dave. Hollywood star, you're trending up. Maybe you'll one day get to put your hands into the cement and get your star, or LA car chase, where we got, as our boy Wob likes to say, birds in the air, chasing after the car chase. Okay, who is your Hollywood star, Dave?
Welcome to Hollywood Boulevard, Thomas Bryant, the Lakers' backup center, who's back with the LA franchise on a second stint, who suffered a freak of a fractured thumb injury right before the season began and missed a significant chunk of time, about more than a month. Was called upon when Anthony Davis went out with this illness and really showed up. I know the Lakers did not look good down the stretch against the Cleveland Cavaliers, but they were, I think, tied at 92 with about 8 minutes to go. And a lot of that was from Bryant hitting his shots, playing scrappy, getting steals and blocks and rebounds, and just really playing with a nose for the basketball. And then the next night in Toronto, he goes 10 for 10 from the free throw line. His numbers weren't quite as good overall in terms of rebounding and steals and blocks that they were in Cleveland, but he is playing engaged basketball. And the beautiful thing about his game right now is, Russell Westbrook's had his ups and downs, obviously, since coming to LA, but they have some bit of chemistry that they developed when they were on the Wizards together. The Wizards, not the Bullets, by the way, when they were on the Wizards together.
I'm gonna wear my Bullets hoodie one of these days on the show.
And they showed it already that they can replicate it in LA together. And I think the Lakers, as we were mentioned earlier in the show, like margin of error, very, very small. But you start to look at the pieces that they put together this year. Only 6 returning players from last year's team. And last year, we gave that front office a really hard time for the poor decisions in some of those vets that they brought in who did absolutely nothing. The Kent Bazemores, the Trevor Arizas, the DeAndre Jordans of the world, et cetera, et cetera. Well, you start to look at the pieces that they brought in this year, and you're like, well, Lonnie Walker looks pretty good. Troy Brown Jr. looks pretty good. Now Thomas Bryant looks pretty good. Dennis Schroeder starting to put some games together. And you start to say, like, thus far, they had a pretty good offseason. Of course, there's holes in this roster, shooting being the biggest thing. And then we talked about that switchable wing. But I think Thomas Bryant will continue to be a player for this group, and he deserves some recognition for the way that he stayed ready, without getting these big opportunities. And then the first chance he gets, he knocks out the park.
Almost sounds like you're willing to give Rob Pelinka one hand in the cement there, Dave, for some of the moves. Hey, babe, we'll see.
We'll see.
We'll save that if he makes a trade. My Hollywood star, I think for the second time this season, I'm giving it to Nick Batum. Nick Batum, in the previous 2 games prior to Thursday night against Orlando and Charlotte, hit 4 3-pointers in each game, had 13 points, 16 points. Yes, I did mention that he did have a 5-second inbounds infraction, which I don't think necessarily was his fault. But anyways, you always blame the inbounder on that one. But Nick Batum looking very good with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George back. A lot of open threes for him. He looks like the role player that they kind of need. interchangeable to be able to defend centers and things of that nature. But really, the offense, I think, was starting to really come alive, being a spot-up shooter to really help them. So I give Nick Batum his props. If he can have Kawhi Leonard, Paul George around all season long, Nick Batum, if you're going to hit 4 3-pointers a game every game, that would be huge for them. As for my LA car chase, Dave, same old story with the Clippers, Dave. Injuries. Terrence Mann was having a terrific game against Orlando. And the thing about Terrence Mann is he brings them. I feel like this season, Dave, I don't know, you can correct me if I'm wrong here. We're noticing the energy players more and more having a massive impact on games. What comes to my mind is like Yuta Watanabe in Brooklyn. Guys like that, yes, Yuta got hurt, but like guys like that having a huge impact on veteran teams. Terrence Mann does something that the Clippers just simply don't have. He's an energy guy that can take it to the rim and be relentless and constantly attack that rim. Yes, they have Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, but you need somebody else who can do it. And Terrence Mann, 7 of 10, he had 19 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, and really kept them afloat in the minutes that Kawhi and Paul George were out. But he, I think, ran into a guy pretty hard, and now he's in concussion protocol. And so he is out. He was out against Miami on Thursday night. We'll see how long it takes for him to get out. But just another guy, just another Clipper, as they are starting to get into a rhythm, start to understand their role, like Norman Powell. Here he is, Terrence Mann, hurt as well. So who is your LA car chase, Dave?
So you're saying Terrence Mann down?
Yes, man down. Terrence Mann down. T-Man down. Yep. Oh, wait, let me say this. I want to get to your LA car chase. I've been meaning to say this the whole show. Before Mama Mac-10 comes in and yells at us for taking her beautiful office, and I can see now, yes, the sunflowers in the corner. We don't want to take Mama Mac-10's office much longer.
Okay. Well, yes. It's nice to be home for sure. And gonna have some home cooking tonight, so can't wait for that. But car chase with the Los Angeles alternative jerseys that the Lakers are wearing this year. They are terrible. There's a 2-line font set. So Los on one line, Angeles on the other. It's a white jersey base with purple and black as the secondary colors. So it's basically a bruise, the way it looks. And it's just an uninspired jersey set that looks like it was, schlepped together on Photoshop. And quite frankly, I played in rec leagues in Burbank that some of the teams I play against have better looking kits than what the Lakers are wearing this year. So failure, just a complete failure. You have so many options of what to do with these teams. We've seen how much the fan base goes crazy for those black uniforms, the Mamba uniforms. Just bring them back, make them part of it. No need to. They've been messing around with these blues and all sorts of uninspired and just failures. These last couple of years.
Dave, I have an alternative jersey question for you. What did you think of my hometown Bullets wearing the cherry blossom alternative uniforms the other day against the Lakers? Don't say you don't like it. See, Dave, you're not from DC. I love them. I absolutely love them. It's kind of like almost like a pinkish hue. Because Dave, have you ever gone and seen the cherry blossoms? Have you ever been in DC during the cherry blossom season?
I have. Those I wouldn't quite say. I would say Pepto-Bismol-ish.
No. They don't look that bad.
And they've done it in the past where it wasn't. They evoked the idea of the cherry blossoms before, but you make white your primary color. What I did like the little cherry blossom dotting the eye on the Washington. That was a nice touch. Way too much. Way too much. Can we just keep things simple?
No, Dave.
You got the classics. Stick with the classics. Stick with the classics.
Yeah, I like classic. You know me, I like my retro uniform, but also from time to time, I do like new alternative uniforms. Like for example, we've spoken a lot about colleges here, but anytime Oregon brings out like an alternative uniform, sometimes I tend to like them. Or like Michigan State, where I have a highlighter green uniform. Sometimes I like those. I'm one of the few that actually likes stuff like that. But you're right with the Lakers. I really do believe that's a franchise you have to stick with the classics.
Yeah. But they're always going to have next year to try to get it right. And we'll have next week on this show to keep trying to get it right. For Ohm, I'm Dave. That's OD. Treat the game well, they'll treat you well. See y'all next week.